Hello, it's Alex and welcome to Hey Little Thrifter. Today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 horror books that I read in 2017. I had quite a few 4-star reads last year and 2 5 stars, so I have tried to put this in a top 5 order going from the bottom to the top. So starting off at number 5, we have What the Hell Did I Just Read by David Wong, and this is the 3rd book in a series, the first 2 being John Dies at the End and the 2nd being This Book is Full of Spiders, seriously dude, don't touch it. This series follows a trio of unlikely heroes. We have David, his best friend John and his girlfriend Amy, and weird stuff keeps happening in their neighbourhood and they have become the go-to people to go deal with it. So this is more of a sci-fi / fantasy based horror novel, and it's absolutely hilarious, fast-paced, fun-filled, crazy characters and adventures galore. If you haven't read any of the books in this series yet, then I highly recommend picking up John Dies at the End. That was a 5-star read for me. And if you haven't read the most recent one, What the Hell Did I Just Read, then go check it out. It wasn't quite as good as the first 2 books in the series for me, but it was still thoroughly entertaining. There were definitely some laugh out loud moments and I just really enjoyed the ride. Next up, another sci-fi based horror novel is Under the Skin by Michel Faber, but this one, not really many laughs going on here. This one is fairly serious, and Michel Faber is a fantastic writer. This is the only book of his that I've read so far, but I definitely want to read more. And this tells the story of Isili, who lives in a remote area in Scotland, and she spends her time driving around picking up hitchhikers, and things go from there. So I don't want to give too much away from this, but it is a very well written, intriguing, unsettling story and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had already seen the film adaptation of this starring Scarlett Johansson, which I thought was fantastic, and I had heard that there were some differences between the book and the film. Some people seemed to like that and some people did not. I really enjoyed them both and I did actually really like their differences. I thought they both worked very well for the format, and I'm so glad I finally got around to reading this. It was brilliant. Next up is another 4-star read, which was really close to being a 5-star, so maybe I should have given it a 4.5 star. Anyway, it is The Elementals by Michael McDowell, and this is just a full-on horror novel. There's no really other way to describe it, and this is based in the South, in Alabama, and we focus on 2 very wealthy families. They have vacation homes on the coast, and there are 3 homes in total, 2 of which are owned by these 2 families, and one of which they don't know who it's owned by and it's always just been empty. And there's a death in one of the families, so they all decide to take a trip to the vacation homes and spend some time there. And one of the members of the family is a 13-year-old girl who hasn't actually visited these homes before, so it's her first time there. So she spends a lot of time exploring, and she notices that this 3rd house is filling up with sand, and there are some strange goings on in there, and it is revealed that other members of the family over the years have experienced some strange goings on, so things escalate from there. Malcolm McDowell is such a great writer. I absolutely loved this and I highly recommend it if you haven't read it before. I did follow this up with another of his books, The Amulet, which I thought was good but not as good as The Elementals, so if you want somewhere to start then this is a good place. So now on to my 2 5-star horror books that I read in 2017. I had a really hard time picking a place of 2 and 1 for these. They were both amazing. So first up is The Woman in Black by Susan Hill, and this is the first Susan Hill that I have read. I don't know why it's taken me this long to get to it, because I've already seen film adaptations of this, I've seen a play adaptation of it, so yeah, I don't know why it took me so long, but this is just an absolutely fantastic ghost story. We're following a solicitor who travels to a small town on the east coast of England to deal with the affairs of an estate after the death of one of their clients. It turns out this lady was a bit of a recluse, and she lived in a house that was only accessible when the tide was low. So anytime it was high tide, the house was completely cut off. You couldn't get to or from it. There are so many wonderfully creepy scenes in this book. It's really well written, I loved the characters, and the story was very absorbing. And even though I knew the story already because I'd seen adaptations of it, it was still such a brilliant read and I absolutely loved it. It is such a fantastic ghost story, very creepy, spooky, all of that good stuff. And finally, my favourite horror novel that I read in 2017 was We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. And this tells the story of a family who live in a house in a village, and there is some conflict between them and the rest of the village. The family are very reclusive, and the main character, Mary Cat, who is a teenage girl, especially so. She lives in her own head a lot and has a lot of ritualistic OCD type behaviour. I connected with that quite a lot actually, and found her portrayal very interesting. The relationships with the family in the house, talking about their past and things that led up to where they are in the present. It's very unnerving and unsettling. There's just this feel of dread throughout the whole book. So there's such an atmosphere here, and it's incredibly well written. I absolutely love this. This was hands down a 5-star read for me. So that was my top 5 horror novels that I read last year. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any recommendations. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!